The galaxy held many secrets, but none were as feared or revered as the Chrysanthus Mortalis, a plant so lethal that its mention sent shivers through the spines of even the bravest explorers. Found only in the dense, dark jungles of Zortan V, a planet with a death toll higher than most interstellar wars, the Chrysanthus Mortalis was known for its mesmerizing beauty and unmatched lethality. It stood at the pinnacle of evolution, a botanical predator capable of ending any life form that came too close. In the early days of the Galactic Union, attempts had been made to study the plant, but those missions ended in tragedy. Teams returned with missing members or not at all, their last transmissions filled with panicked shouts and haunting silence. The plant's thorns, dripping with a neurotoxin that could kill a being in seconds, and its pollen, which induced paralysis before suffocation, were just a few of the dangers it possessed. Even the apex predators of Zortan V avoided its reach. For centuries, the Chrysanthus Mortalis remained an enigma. Tales of its beauty spread, describing petals that shimmered with an iridescent sheen, shifting colors in the dim light of Zortan's crimson sun. It was a flower that seemed alive in the most sinister way, as if it watched and waited for its next victim. The Galactic Union labeled it untouchable, an entity to be respected and avoided. That is, until humanity set its sights on it. Earth's entry into the Galactic Union was met with mixed feelings. To the more advanced and serene species like the Cerelians and the Tellari, humans were reckless, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a stubbornness that bordered on madness. They were Deathworlders, beings from a planet that seemed determined to kill them with everything it had, from storms and earthquakes to disease and predators. But it was that very background that made humanity uniquely equipped to handle what others could not. Dr. Maria Bennett was a xenobotanist with a reputation that reached far beyond Earth. Her passion for alien plant life had led to groundbreaking research and the discovery of several key medicinal compounds that benefited multiple species. When she announced her intent to study the Chrysanthus Mortalis, the news was met with shock and skepticism. Union scientists called her reckless, even suicidal. The plant was a known killer, a nightmare dressed in petals. But Maria was not deterred. "We are not here to conquer," she said at the Union Symposium on Xenoflora, her voice steady and resolute. "We are here to understand. What others see as a predator, we see as potential." After months of preparation, Maria's team set off for Zortan V. They were equipped with the best technology Earth and the Union could provide: protective suits capable of withstanding toxins, drones with specialized sensory arrays, and containment units reinforced with energy fields designed to hold even the most aggressive life forms. The ship, the Horizon's Edge, was staffed not just with scientists but with engineers and security experts, each handpicked for their adaptability and calm under pressure. The descent to Zortan V was like entering another world. The planet's dense atmosphere cast an eerie red glow over everything, and the jungles below seemed to pulse with life, an ecosystem in perfect but deadly balance. Every creature, from the smallest insectoid crawler to the massive, predatory score beasts, was part of a cycle that had evolved to survive the harshest conditions. Maria stood at the viewport, her brown eyes reflecting the crimson below. "We've prepared as much as we can," she said, turning to her second-in-command, Dr. Arun Patel. His dark eyes mirrored her determination. "Prepared is one thing," Arun said, his voice carrying the gravity of their mission. "But let's not forget what we're dealing with. This isn't just a plant, it's a force of nature." The landing site was chosen carefully, a clearing a mile away from the densest concentration of Chrysanthus Mortalis. The air was heavy with moisture and the sense of alien flora, a heady mix that was both intoxicating and suffocating. The team disembarked, their suits humming with the activation of filters and shields. Drones hovered around them, their sensors scanning the area for threats. The first few hours were spent setting up a perimeter and calibrating the containment units. Maria's eyes were drawn to the dense wall of vegetation to the north, where the glow of the deadly flowers was just visible. They shimmered in the light, their petals shifting from deep blue to a haunting violet. It was both beautiful and terrible. "We proceed with the drones first," Maria said, her voice crackling through the comms. "We need to study its reaction before we get any closer." The drones moved in, their sensory arrays picking up the subtle changes in the plants as they approached. The Chrysanthus Mortalis seemed to react, its petals vibrating in a way that sent a shiver down Maria's spine. Data streamed in, displaying the composition of the air around the flowers. High levels of an unknown compound were detected, likely the paralytic pollen. "It's already reacting defensively," Arun noted, his voice tinged with awe. "This isn't just a passive plant. It's aware." The team's biologists worked quickly, analyzing the compounds and cross-referencing them with known toxins. What they found was groundbreaking. The plant's neurotoxin had similarities to some terrestrial compounds, but with unique properties that suggested potential medical uses if it could be controlled. Maria's pulse quickened. "This could change everything," she said, the implications racing through her mind. "We need a live specimen." A murmur of unease passed through the team. Collecting a live Chrysanthus Mortalis was a risk that bordered on insanity. The plant's thorns could puncture even the toughest material, and its pollen was potent enough to bypass most filtration systems. But Maria was convinced that with the right approach, they could capture one safely. Preparations for the collection began at dawn. The team assembled the containment unit, a cylindrical pod reinforced with layered energy fields. The plan was simple in theory. Use drones to weaken the plant's thorns and release a neutralizing agent that would suppress its defensive mechanisms long enough to transport it. The first attempt was tense. The drones moved in, releasing a mist of the neutralizing agent. For a moment, it seemed to work. The plant's petals drooped slightly, and the thorns retracted. But as the containment unit approached, a sudden pulse of energy emanated from the plant, sending a shockwave that knocked the drones out of the air and sent the team scrambling. "Fall back!" Arun shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the forest as it reacted to the disturbance. Predatory creatures called out, their cries echoing through the dense jungle. Maria's heart pounded, but she didn't retreat. "Recalibrate the neutralizing agent," she said, determination overriding the fear that clawed at her. "We need to increase the dose." The second attempt was met with a mix of anxiety and determination. This time, the drones released a stronger concentration of the agent, and the plant's response was more subdued. The containment unit, piloted remotely, moved in, encasing the plant in a transparent, energy-reinforced shell. The team held their breath as the pod sealed and the energy fields activated, creating a barrier that isolated the Chrysanthus Mortalis from the outside air. "We have it," Arun said, disbelief and relief mingling in his voice. Cheers erupted through the comms, but Maria's eyes stayed on the glowing pod. This was just the beginning. Back on the horizon's edge, the containment unit was secured in the research bay. The team worked in shifts, studying the plant's responses and isolating the compounds it produced. Data flowed in at an unprecedented rate. They discovered that the paralytic pollen had properties that, when modified, could be used to treat nerve damage. The neurotoxin, refined, showed potential as a powerful anesthetic. Maria watched as the data accumulated, a sense of wonder washing over her. The Chrysanthus Mortalis was a killer, yes, but it was also a marvel of evolution, holding secrets that could revolutionize medicine and bioengineering. But their triumph was short-lived. 3 days into their research, alarms blared through the ship. The containment unit's energy field flickered, and the plant inside pulsed with an intensity that cast eerie shadows across the lab. "It's reacting to something," Arun said, his fingers flying over the control panel. "The energy field is destabilizing." Maria's mind raced. "We need to reinforce it. Increase the containment output." But before they could act, a thin tendril snaked out from a seam in the pod, unnoticed until it was too late. It struck one of the drones, and a small burst of pollen filled the air. The filters in their suits kicked in immediately, but a technician stumbled, his suit's light dimming as the pollen took effect. "Evacuate the lab," Maria shouted, grabbing the technician and dragging him out as Arun activated the emergency lockdown. The door sealed behind them, and the team watched through the observation window as the plant thrashed inside its pod, its petals glowing with an almost sentient rage. "He's breathing," Arun said, checking the technician's vitals. "But the paralysis is setting in." Maria's jaw clenched. They had underestimated the plant's adaptability. But as she watched it, contained but defiant, she felt a spark of understanding. This was no simple organism. It was a survivor like them. The next phase of their work was more cautious. The team analyzed the plant's aggressive response, learning that it was triggered by fluctuations in energy fields. They adjusted the containment protocols, creating a more stable environment that kept the plant docile. Weeks turned into months, and the breakthroughs came steadily. The team learned to communicate with the plant's biochemistry, creating a balance that allowed them to safely extract its compounds. The once lethal Chrysanthus Mortalis became not just a subject of study but a partner in discovery. The final achievement came when they synthesized a serum from the plant's neurotoxin that could stimulate rapid healing in damaged nerves. It was tested carefully, first on isolated cells, and then in controlled environments. The results were beyond anything they had hoped for, a treatment that could reverse paralysis and heal injuries deemed permanent. Maria stood in the research bay, now filled with the glow of data screens and the subdued hum of the containment pod. The Chrysanthus Mortalis inside was still lethal, still dangerous, but it had become something more, a source of hope. As the team prepared to return to the Galactic Union with their findings, Maria reflected on the journey. They had taken what was feared, what was seen as untouchable, and found a way to coexist with it. They had turned a predator into an ally, showing the galaxy once again that humanity's greatest strength was not just in surviving but in adapting, understanding, and ultimately thriving. And as the stars stretched out before the horizon's edge, Maria knew this was only the beginning. The universe was filled with dangers yet to be understood, but with curiosity and courage, even the most lethal could become a source of light.